Picture this. You're trying to deal with one of life's most basic needs, the bathroom, while wearing what can only be described as portable architecture. You're wrapped in enough fabric to build a tent. Your ribs are locked inside a corset so tight you can barely breathe. And you're surrounded by high society, where the faintest whisper of what you're really doing would cause scandal. Today, we are stepping into one of history's strangest mysteries: how Victorian women managed to use the toilet while dressed like walking monuments to fashion. And trust me, the solutions they came up with will absolutely surprise you. Before we dive into hidden chamber pots, secret bathroom strategies, and shocking fashion hacks, let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if you enjoy exploring history's strangest and most overlooked details, make sure to subscribe, because we have plenty more to uncover. All right, let's step back into a world where simply going to the bathroom was a full-scale operation. The daily armor of Victorian fashion. For a Victorian woman, getting dressed wasn't casual. It was closer to suiting up for battle. The first layer was a linen shift, light, breathable, and protective, keeping expensive gowns safe from sweat and skin. Next came the corset, laced so tightly it could actually reshape a woman's ribs over time. Over this came petticoats, not one or two, but sometimes 6 or 7 layers, each adding bulk, shape, and insulation. And then the engineering marvel, the crinoline. The crinoline was essentially a cage of steel hoops held together with fabric tapes, expanding a woman's skirt outward, sometimes up to 6 feet across. Imagine trying to walk through a doorway or sit down while carrying a 6-foot steel cage under your dress. These dresses were heavy, some weighing 20 pounds or more. Some were so wide that houses had to create special furniture just to accommodate them. Living in this much clothing meant personal hygiene had to be completely reimagined. What we see as simple, private, and quick today became an art of choreography, secrecy, and strategy. The chamber pot. Center stage. The solution of choice? The chamber pot. But not the kind you're picturing. Women's chamber pots were specially designed. Oval, shallow, curved, meant to fit discreetly under all those layers of fabric. A lady didn't remove her clothing. Instead, she perfected a method of positioning that combined balance, precision, and absolute composure. Higher quality pots came with tight-fitting lids, not only to control smell but also to quietly signal to servants whether the pot needed attention. In wealthy homes, chamber pots were hidden inside elegant furniture, chairs with secret compartments, ornate cabinets with concealed drawers, or commodes disguised as polished wooden chests. To the untrained eye, they looked like luxury furniture. To the household staff, they were the unsung backbone of daily life. Servants became silent professionals in managing this hidden system, checking, emptying, cleaning, often several times a day. But here's the catch. A lady couldn't simply lift her skirt. With 20 pounds of fabric and a steel cage around her body, the process required calculation. The chamber pot had to be slid into place while the woman carefully adjusted her fabric layers. No clothing was removed. The goal was discretion, efficiency, and above all, dignity. At public events, the system became even more refined. Bathroom lounges for the elite grand houses and ballrooms often had what were called retiring rooms. These were early versions of restroom lounges, designed so women could step away discreetly. But even here, the process wasn't private. Maids acted like pit crews, helping arrange skirts, guide chamber pots, and provide cleaning afterward, all without attracting notice from anyone outside. Every move was carefully choreographed to avoid embarrassment. The very act of using the toilet became a performance, one of balance, silence, and composure. The shock of no underwear. Here's where things get surprising. For much of the Victorian era, many women wore no underwear at all. Yes, beneath those enormous skirts there was often nothing. With layers of petticoats and a giant crinoline, society believed extra undergarments were unnecessary. But this changed quickly when crinolines began causing public incidents. Imagine a woman walking down a street when a sudden gust of wind flips her 6-foot skirt inside out like an umbrella. Suddenly, what had always been hidden was on full display. Scandals like this led to a revolutionary invention: split-crotch drawers. Unlike modern underwear, these weren't solid garments. They were two pant legs joined at the waist, with an opening in the middle. The design gave women coverage while still allowing them to use the bathroom without undressing. Ingenious, practical, and discreet. The toilet paper problem. If you think chamber pots and split drawers were challenging, consider this. Toilet paper as we know it wasn't common until the late 1800s. So what did they use instead? The answer varied by class. Poorer families used whatever was available. Newspapers, catalog pages, corn husks, even leaves. Wealthier households preferred soft linen cloths, which could be washed and reused. Of course, managing this added to the workload of servants who had to launder these cloths discreetly, along with all the other household linens. Menstruation, the silent struggle. As complicated as daily bathroom needs were, menstruation added another layer of difficulty. Victorian women used cloth pads secured by a T-bandage, essentially a cloth belt with straps that held the pads in place. Materials ranged from rags to cotton to moss or sheep's wool depending on availability. During heavy days, women sometimes had to change pads a dozen or more times daily. And all of this had to be done quietly, beneath layers of skirts, without speaking about it, even to other women. Menstruation was not openly acknowledged. The silence surrounding this monthly challenge meant women relied on passed-down family knowledge, private experimentation, and ingenuity to cope. The laundry challenge. Now imagine trying to keep all these clothes clean. Victorian dresses were massive, delicate, and often decorated with lace, beads, or embroidery. Washing them frequently would ruin them. In many households, major laundry was only done twice a year during great wash days. Instead, dresses were spot cleaned, brushed, aired out, and treated with powders to absorb odors. The washable layers, shifts, chemises, and drawers were cleaned more often. Their purpose was partly hygiene, but also to protect the expensive gowns above them. Public sanitation and strange solutions. Beyond the private home, Victorian sanitation was messy, sometimes literally. Many cities still used medieval garderobe systems. Waste was tossed from upper floor openings directly into the street below. Pedestrians quickly learned to dodge after hearing cries of "Gardez l'eau," watch out for the water. Even chamber pot contents weren't always wasted. During wars, urine was actually collected by governments since it could be processed into saltpeter, a key ingredient in gunpowder. Yes, your waste could literally fuel a battlefield. Privacy didn't exist. One of the strangest details is how different their sense of privacy was. Families often used chamber pots in the same room. At social gatherings, men would casually step into gardens to relieve themselves among the flower beds. Privacy, as we define it today, wasn't the norm. And yet, women were still expected to maintain grace and elegance, even while navigating the most difficult, undignified realities. Adaptability and ingenuity. When you step back, what stands out is not just the inconvenience but the resourcefulness. Victorian women became masters of planning, calculating how long they could go without facilities, limiting fluids before long outings, and coordinating with friends and maids for assistance. They also created subtle systems of communication. Mothers taught daughters tricks for maneuvering in their clothing. Female friends developed coded signals to excuse themselves at events. Servants perfected techniques to assist discreetly. Entire networks of unspoken support evolved, helping women endure the daily battle of living in such impractical clothing. The cost of elegance. All of this required labor. Wealthy households employed laundresses, maids, and seamstresses whose primary jobs were maintaining a woman's wardrobe. The cost of keeping one woman dressed and functional was staggering. Yet, it was seen as necessary, both for fashion and for social reputation. Interestingly, the impracticality of these fashions may have indirectly encouraged some positive changes. Women spent more time indoors, focusing on reading, education, and domestic arts. Some historians argue that the sheer inconvenience of fashion nudged women toward intellectual pursuits, simply because they couldn't move freely outside. The slow shift toward freedom change didn't come quickly. The move away from extreme fashions took decades. As bicycles became popular, clothing had to adapt. Practical skirts emerged, followed by tailored suits. And when World War I arrived, Women entered the workforce in larger numbers, demanding clothing that allowed real movement. The 6-foot crinolines gave way to slimmer bustles and eventually to more modern designs. Mobility finally began to win over spectacle. A lasting legacy. Looking back, it's easy to laugh at these extremes. But the story reveals something deeper about human creativity. Faced with impossible clothing, women engineered hidden systems to preserve both hygiene and dignity. They normalized the absurd, and did it so gracefully that society barely questioned it. These struggles also influenced the future. Fashion design shifted toward practicality. Sanitation systems improved. Even the concept of privacy and personal hygiene evolved partly because of the absurd challenges of the Victorian wardrobe. So next time you pull on comfortable clothes or step into a clean private bathroom, remember, the conveniences we take for granted were hard-won. Victorian women managed their daily needs while trapped in what amounted to steel cages of fashion. And they did it with elegance, determination, and resilience. Their story is a reminder that innovation often begins with inconvenience, that even in the most restrictive circumstances, people find ways to adapt, endure, and carry on with dignity. So, what did you think of this glimpse into Victorian bathroom culture? Were you as surprised as I was by the hidden ingenuity behind all those skirts and corsets? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share where you were watching from. If you enjoyed this dive into the strangest corners of history, hit subscribe, because we've got plenty more stories coming, from shocking beauty secrets to bizarre dining habits. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.